Hi, my name's Ian Mitchell and I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. And today we're going to be talking about holding daily Scrums with Kanban. Now at first it may seem like this is a fairly straightforward matter to discuss, because after all there's a roughly equivalent event that's often held by Kanban teams known as the Daily Huddle. But in fact, a daily Scrum and a daily huddle aren't quite as equivalent as you might assume. You see, a daily Scrum will be held by a Scrum development team, and that'll consist of between 3 and 9 members, roughly speaking. It's restricted to that because those team members will need to collaborate very, very closely with each other to make sure that the sprint goal is met. During the daily Scrum, they'll be focused on replanning to make sure that that goal is in fact accomplished by the time the sprint ends. A Kanban team, on the other hand, won't be focused on meeting a sprint goal, and they won't have a need to collaborate with each other on that basis. In fact, the members of a Kanban team may not need to collaborate with each other any more than workflow policies demand. So, rather than having 3 to 9 people in a daily huddle, you may find several dozen in attendance, perhaps even 30 or 40. So what does this really mean for a Scrum development team that's trying to implement Kanban as a strategy? What's their daily Scrum going to look like? Well, it's still going to be a daily Scrum. There'll still be between 3 and 9 people there. The Scrum development team's structure, its intent, doesn't change. And they'll still be focused on meeting a sprint goal. They'll still be replanning that day on what it is they're going to do to help meet it. However, the nature of their sprint goal will probably have changed a bit. Rather than being something like a feature that they'll aim to deliver by the end of the sprint, rather than having a feature-based sprint goal, their goal may be much more flow-based. A Scrum development team implementing Kanban as a strategy may, during its daily Scrum, be figuring out how close it's getting towards realizing a sprint goal that's aimed towards improving things like cycle time or throughput or reducing work item age. Each day during a daily Scrum, that Scrum development team may meet and say, what's our service level expectation likely to be this sprint? Are we on course to satisfy it? If we've got service level agreements in place, are we really going to be able to honour them? Those are the kind of things that a Scrum development team will be focused on when it's holding its daily Scrum. And because of that, the dynamic between them, the way they set about holding their daily Scrum, may be rather different to normal, because traditionally a Scrum development team will answer 3 questions. That's the way it's often perceived. What did I do yesterday to help the team meet the sprint goal? What am I going to do today to help them meet it? And what impediments do I have that are getting in the way of me helping the team to meet the sprint goal? Now, a Scrum development team that's implementing Kanban may break from that tradition. It's not a rule that they have to answer those 3 questions, it's just a common practice. So when they're implementing Kanban as a strategy, they may not necessarily wish to do that at all. They may hold their daily Scrum in a way that's much more oriented around flow. So rather than asking those 3 questions, they may do something called walking the board. The team as a whole, during its daily Scrum, may look firstly at the work that's blocked. What do we need to do to unblock it so things can get flowing again? Then they might look at the work that's in progress. What do we hope to complete today? How can we collaborate as a team to complete certain items? Then, once they've looked at the work that's in progress, then they might start looking at what's in the backlog. What can we bring forward as a team today, that we can start working on? But the focus will always be on completing work rather than starting it. And team members will be much more focused on helping each other to complete work that's in progress rather than starting new items by themselves. This is the kind of dynamic that you would expect a Scrum team that's implementing Kanban to follow. It's rather different from the traditional Scrums development team's Daily Scrum, but it's perfectly viable. When development teams implement Scrum with Kanban, they're much more likely to be focused on flow rather than features.